Good morning, good evening, whatever time of day it is for you. Welcome to this thing that I do called Thor's Entertainment. I am Thor, and today I'm doing another Fatal Friday video. Fatal Friday being a series of videos where I went into the Kombat League for Mortal Kombat 1, and I casually tried to get brutalities and fatalities against whoever I was randomly paired up against. This week I am highlighting another brutality for Li Mei, and this brutality is going to be titled Light the Way. So Light the Way is going to be the brutality version of Li Mei's projectile. But unlike her normal projectile, the brutality version is going to have Li Mei using her firework powers to end the fight by demolishing the opponent's torso, leaving a gigantic hole in it.
Police only serve to enforce the wealthy's delusions.
A clueless and dangerous statement, Havik.
Take one.
My opponent that was provided by the randomness of the Kombat League was somebody using Havik and the kameo Subzero. At the time, I did not see very many people using Havik online, and I believe this was also months before I would eventually pick up the character and start using Havik myself. In fact, whenever I was using Li Mei, I don't even recall taking Havik into training mode and learning some of his punishable moves. I just saw the character so little that whenever this was recorded, there did not really seem like a good reason to waste time with Havik considering how little people were using him. So I did not know much about the character at all. With no real hands-on experience and very little experience fighting against other people using Havik, this is my way of saying I did not really know what I should have been expecting or trying to counter against this character. So whenever I was using Li Mei in this fight, I found myself in a pretty gigantic life deficit, so this was definitely a challenge in round 1 and it felt like I was just guessing a lot. And even though I do end up losing the first round of the first match, I did manage to come back significantly before it was over. And would you look at that? The Havik user decided he was going to go ahead and taunt me after winning one round. Sure would be a shame if the rest of this fight didn't go so well. I don't know, but maybe just don't celebrate too soon. But yeah, round number 2 definitely goes better overall. At least both of us end up being pretty close to each other whenever it comes to health. And both of us managed to keep the other person from getting any sort of a major life lead. And this second round, while it's not my best work by any means, it was pretty awesome. That opinion is based solely on how this round comes to an end, because I nearly lose round 2 as well in a really close fashion. But by the very end of it, I get a very clutch freeze from the kameo Frost, and that allows me to combo into a guaranteed fatal blow. But the 390 damage combo comes up just a little bit short of beating Havik. He is just one touch away from death, so I say screw it, and I go ahead and throw out Li Mei's flying knee attack. But at the same time, Havik activated his fatal blow, which if it landed would definitely kill me. So it was a race to see who would get hit first. And in a photo finish, I ended up taking round number 2 and I was still alive. As much as I love how that round ended, I have to admit this final round is a little bit disappointing. That is because I get the exact brutality setup that I was shooting for, but it does not work out. So the goal was to have Frost freeze my opponent whenever they were super low on health, like maybe one hit away from death. And since the kameo Frost can freeze somebody from anywhere on the screen as long as they are on the ground, I could easily adjust my distance to fit the brutality requirement. The problem that occurred though was that I messed up my buttons, and because of that I do not end up shooting the projectile like I wanted to, and that ends up costing me the otherwise guaranteed brutality. But by the end of the match I still ended up with the victory and I go up by a score of 1-2-0 in the set. And I would still have one more opportunity, one more match to get the brutality. It is just a bummer that I dropped getting it so easily in the previous match. In fact, here comes the big moment that I was talking about. Havik tries to do his fatal blow, he misses, and then I weaken him just enough to be basically one hit away from death. I go ahead and I run away from him and I summon Frost. It does not work the first time, but I keep trying, and eventually I do freeze him, and then I completely screw up the attack. I still get the victory, but man, it is rough to watch that back and see myself not get the brutality when it was right there. That's alright though, we still have one more opportunity, one more match. Let's go ahead and move on to match number 2. Now while match number 2 is happening, I should probably comment on my kameo of choice for this battle. I talked about just a little bit earlier, but in more detail, this is the third kameo that I have used with Li Mei in one of these videos. Previously, I have used Striker, and that was just because I really needed to knock out some of his finishers. And also with Li Mei, I have used Cyrax, and that was because his help. And also with Li Mei, I have used the kameo Cyrax, and that's because his net is very helpful in trying to get a very specific brutality. Even though when I did end up getting that brutality, I did not even use the net, so that's kind of ironic. And now we have kameo number 3, Frost. The change to Frost was very deliberate because the full screen possibility of a freeze is very helpful whenever trying to get this brutality because of its distance requirement. Now I almost went with Cyrax as my cameo again, and that is just because his net lasts a very long time. In fact, it definitely lasts longer than Frost Freeze. I have tested that in the past, so you could argue it'd be more useful here for lining up that distance. But I feel like the Frost Freeze catches people off guard more frequently than the net does. So that is why I made this likely one-time switch. So yeah, that is my breakdown of the cameo choice, but these projectile brutalities can be some of the funniest ones that I have had to set up. And again, that goes back to that distance requirement because I feel like most of these videos, whenever I'm trying to go for a projectile brutality, they end kind of the same goofy way every single time. The projectiles are generally really weak, so the opponent has to be pretty close to death, or at least as close to death as possible for them to work. And then going back to the distance requirement, I feel like the battles always turn into me being overly cautious about not accidentally killing my opponent too soon, and then as soon as I get them weak enough, it is me just refusing to fight and then non-stop running away from my opponent for the remainder of the match, just hoping that I can land the projectile at the right distance so I get the brutality. So the entire time I am running away from them, I'm basically just hopping around and hoping they eventually screw up, and maybe they get frozen or something else happens to where I stay in the fight long enough to land that projectile at just the right distance, which almost never happens because, again, they are usually trying to chase me and get back into the fight themselves, which just results in me continuing to hop around the stage and probably being really super annoying to my opponent, which it is not my intention to toy around with my opponent, but like, don't have a whole lot of other options for trying to get that distance sometimes, so I mean, do what you have to do, I suppose. And here comes my hopping around and hoping for the best. I shoot and I miss. I jump over his fatal blow and now I'm just trying to run away again.
Get away. Get away. Get away. Frost! Get away. Get away. Get away. Frost! Yes!
Li Mei wins.
And there it was. That was the Light the Way brutality for Li Mei. And that ends the entire set against Havik, leaving him with a gigantic hole in his chest. It would have been nice to have gotten that brutality twice, considering I had an opportunity back in the very first match, but that's okay. At least we got it once. Although I will make sure to show the brutality one final time at the very end of this outro, that way we can all watch it one final time before we part ways. And also, before ending this video, thank you to my randomly selected opponent by the Kombat League. This was actually a pretty fun fight overall, even though it ended up winning 2-0 in the set. That score is a little bit deceiving because I really had to work for it. I believe every single round for both matches came down to us both being below 30% health, so realistically it could have gone either way. But yeah, with the brutality out of the way, there's really not too much more to say here on this Fatal Friday. Just thank you for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to check out the other things I have on the Thor's Entertainment channel. I do have plenty of other finisher videos for Mortal Kombat 1 under the Fatal Friday playlists. And I also have playthroughs of the story modes for Mortal Kombat's 9, 10, 11, and Mortal Kombat 1. And besides the Mortal Kombat stuff, I also have playthroughs of Resident Evil 2, and other video games. I'll also have a new playthrough of Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver up here in the next couple of weeks, so feel free to check those out if any of that sounds interesting to you. But yeah, with all that out of the way, thank you again for checking out the video. And to wrap up this Fatal Friday, take care, and hopefully I will see you next time.